there's a sound I'll never forget, the slow scrape of my chair across the floor as I tried to stand and couldn't. Not because I was tired or in pain, but because my legs simply wouldn't move. No warning, no injury. Just a creeping weakness I'd brushed off for months, finally showing its teeth. If you're over 60, you might know what I'm talking about, the wobble when you rise, the stiffness that makes stairs feel like Everest, or that odd moment where your legs hesitate just long enough to scare you. Now, what if I told you this has less to do with age than with what's on your plate? You might be feeding your legs their worst enemy every day, disguised as a healthy vegetable. It happened to me, and what I learned nearly flipped everything I thought I knew about eating right on its head. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly appreciate what I'm doing here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the 3 vegetables that quietly rebuilt my legs from the ground up, and the 3 that almost stole my ability to walk. Let's begin with the ones that saved me. Part 1. The vegetables that revive your legs. I didn't start eating broccoli because I liked it. I started because I was desperate. I was waking up every morning with my calves tight, like piano wires, my feet half asleep, and my balance just slightly off. Not enough to fall, but enough to know something was slipping. My doctor blamed it on aging, but deep down, I didn't buy it. Something else was happening, something I could feel, but not explain. And then one afternoon, while visiting my niece, she handed me a cup of steamed broccoli. "It's brain food," she said almost jokingly. But that word brain stuck with me. Was there a connection? Turns out yes. And not just with the brain. Broccoli is loaded with sulforaphane, a natural compound that acts like an internal cleanup crew. It helps the body flush out toxins, reduce inflammation, and fortify the tiny blood vessels that feed your legs. Most people think of heart health or memory, but sulforaphane has this overlooked power to support the peripheral circulation that keeps your toes warm, your balance steady, and your steps sure. Scientists say inflammation is like rust. It works slowly, quietly, and by the time you notice something vital has already weakened. In your legs, that shows up as stiffness, slow healing, or even that eerie feeling like your feet aren't part of your body anymore. That was me. 2 weeks of broccoli, just 1 cup a day, steamed, never overcooked. And the change was unmistakable. My walks got longer. My sleep got deeper. I stopped dragging my feet across the floor like a tired old ghost. Spinach came next. I used to push it aside on my plate like most people do. But after diving into research, I learned spinach contains natural nitrates that improve blood flow. Not in a superficial way, but deep inside the muscle tissue. That matters when you're older. Good circulation means your muscles get more oxygen. More oxygen means more strength. What's wild is that spinach also feeds your brain. Folate, lutein, and potassium nutrients that help with clarity, memory retention, and even reaction time. After adding spinach to my lunch raw, in smoothies, or lightly sautéed with garlic, I stopped forgetting why I walked into a room. I started sleeping better. I stopped snapping at my partner for no reason. And then there's the carrot. Oh, the humble carrot. I used to think of them as kid food, crunchy orange snacks for school lunches. But carrots are packed with beta-carotene, which your body converts into vitamin A, critical for eye health, yes, but also for neuromuscular coordination. That's a mouthful, but it means your brain and legs stay in sync. One study I read showed that seniors who consumed more beta-carotene had better balance and faster reflexes than those who didn't. Another showed it helped preserve peripheral vision, reducing falls in low-light environments. That blew my mind. Here's the fun fact. Raw carrots are slightly more potent than cooked and less lightly steamed. I started grating them into salads, slicing them into soups, and even blending them into smoothies. Within weeks, I stopped stumbling on steps. The lag between my intention to move and my actual movement vanished. It felt like waking up inside my own body again. Let's be real, none of these vegetables are glamorous. They're not superfoods trending on social media or hiding in expensive powders. They're right there in the produce aisle, usually ignored, but for me, they've been lifelines. Broccoli gave me strength. Spinach gave me clarity. Carrots gave me control. They didn't just revive my legs. They brought me back to myself. But what if you're doing the opposite without realizing it? What if the very vegetables you trust, the ones you saute, roast, or boil with good intentions, are actually robbing your muscles, dulling your nerves, and calcifying your joints? Because that's what happened next. Part 2. How I was slowly poisoning my legs. I used to roast eggplant almost every Sunday, tossed with olive oil, garlic, and pride. It felt healthy, Mediterranean sophisticated. It made me feel like I was doing something right. Until my knees started swelling for no reason. Until the skin around my ankles puffed up, and my legs felt like they belonged to someone else, heavier, stiffer, unreliable. For months, I chalked it up to aging. Just part of getting older, I'd mutter as I rubbed my calves at night. But something didn't sit right. I was eating clean, exercising, sleeping okay, and yet I was getting weaker, not stronger. Then I read about solanine. It's a naturally occurring compound in nightshades like eggplant. A built-in defense mechanism for the plant, but a silent saboteur in some human bodies, especially older ones. Solanine can trigger inflammation, particularly in the joints and muscles. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just simmers. Turns out I'd been simmering for years. And eggplant wasn't alone. Green bell peppers, another nightshade, were a staple in my cooking. Crisp, colorful, packed with vitamin C, or so I thought. But those bright little veggies are also rich in lectins, a kind of protein that can bind to the lining of your gut and block nutrient absorption. In younger bodies, maybe it's no big deal. But in people over 60, it's like adding sugar to the gas tank. Lectins stir up low-grade inflammation in the bloodstream, weakening the tiny vessels that nourish the legs and feet. I started noticing tingling in my toes, a slight numbness after sitting too long, a kind of internal static I couldn't shake. And then came the potatoes. Comfort food, family food, the food of holidays and lazy Sundays. But white potatoes, especially mashed or fried, are a hidden trap for aging bodies. They spike blood sugar fast, and those spikes create inflammation. That inflammation hardens arteries, and hardened arteries mean poor circulation to the extremities. The irony was cruel. I was eating all the things I thought were safe, familiar, nourishing. But instead of helping, they were draining my strength from the inside out. Here's the academic fight worth noting. Some nutritionists defend these vegetables, arguing that they're only problematic in huge amounts or if you're already sensitive. But I've learned, sensitivity isn't always loud. Sometimes it's subtle, a swelling knee, a numb toe, a missed step. Your body whispers before it screams. And cooking doesn't always help. I tried grilling eggplant stuffing peppers, baking my potatoes instead of frying them. But the results were the same. Slower steps, weaker legs, a rising fear that someday soon I wouldn't get back up from a fall. There's this quirky fact I still think about: nightshade plants were once believed to be poisonous in old European herbal lore. Maybe they weren't entirely wrong. I don't believe in fear-based nutrition, but I do believe in listening to your body. So I started cutting them out. Not dramatically, just mindfully. Less eggplant, fewer bell peppers, no white potatoes. I gave my fridge a quiet revolution. And the silence that returned to my legs, no more buzzing, no more ache, was the loudest relief I had ever felt. Sometimes, what you need to heal isn't more. It's less. Part 3. Why I trust color more than labels. Now. At first, I didn't think color mattered. Food is food, right? But then I started noticing a pattern. The more vibrant the vegetable, the better my body seemed to respond. Carrots, spinach, red cabbage, beets, all loaded with deep, rich colors, almost like nature's way of saying, hey, this is good stuff. Meanwhile, the pale, starchy veggies, like white potatoes, or the overly uniform green bell peppers, those left me feeling off. I used to think food labels had all the answers, but now I trust color. Because color carries a secret code: antioxidants, polyphenols, plant power. Let me tell you about sweet potatoes. When I swapped out white potatoes for sweet ones, I expected the taste difference. What I didn't expect was how much better my legs felt. Sweet potatoes have a lower glycemic index, which means no sharp blood sugar spikes. And they're packed with beta-carotene, vitamin C, and potassium, all friends of circulation and joint health. Here's the weird trivia part. Sweet potatoes aren't even related to regular potatoes. They're in a totally different plant family, closer to morning glories. And their anti-inflammatory properties, legit. They eased the lingering stiffness in my ankles and knees. Not overnight, but enough to notice. Enough to keep going. Then there's beets. Oh, beets. I used to hate them earthy, too red, too rooty. But now I blend them into smoothies or roast them with rosemary. Beets are nitrate powerhouses, improving blood flow, oxygen delivery, and muscle function. A study I read suggested that beet juice could enhance walking endurance in older adults. It sounds far-fetched until you try it. After a few weeks of regular beet intake, I realized I was reaching the top of my stairs without stopping for breath. Even more impressive, the reduction in that dead weight feeling in my legs after sitting too long. Red cabbage was the next surprise. It's crunchy, slightly spicy, and bursting with anthocyanins, compounds that fight inflammation and protect nerve function. I started tossing it into slaws, salads, and stir-fries. It brightened my plate and lightened my steps. Here's the scholarly argument you might hear. There's no one size fits all in nutrition. True. But I'd argue that aging bodies have specific needs, and vibrant vegetables meet those needs better than bland pale ones. They're like personalized medicine disguised as food. I've become a label minimalist. I used to obsess over nutrition facts, protein grams, sodium levels. Now, I look for deep orange, rich green, bold purple. I trust the language of color more than the small print on a package. There's something poetic about that. It's not just what these veggies give you, it's what they don't take. They don't inflame, calcify, or spike. They don't drain you with false promises. They restore support and nourish in quiet, consistent ways. And isn't that what we're all looking for after 60? Not miracle cures, but honest companions on the road to strength. So, now when I shop, I skip the frozen pizza aisle. I linger by the produce, letting color guide me. I ask myself one simple question: will this make my legs feel lighter tomorrow? If the answer is yes, it goes in the cart. Part 4. The silent thief that lived in my pantry. I didn't notice it at first. One night, I'd wake up with a leg cramp. Another day, my feet would feel strangely cold. Tiny things, easy to ignore. But then came the restless legs, the subtle tremor in my thighs. After a long day, the odd sense of weakness when stepping off a curb. I started wondering, was this how aging worked? Quietly stealing pieces of you without a warning. It wasn't aging, it was my pantry. I grew up believing that anything labeled low-fat or heart-healthy was a good idea. So my shelves were full of snack bars, flavored oatmeal packets, and low-calorie soup cups. Quick, tidy, convenient. What I didn't see, what the bright labels didn't mention, was the dense fog of additives inside those boxes. Monosodium glutamate, MSG, artificial sweeteners, emulsifiers, preservatives. Each with a job, each with a side effect. MSG was the first red flag. It's used to boost flavor, especially in processed soups, sauces, and frozen meals. But for someone over 60, MSG doesn't just flavor the food. It can overstimulate nerve cells, disrupt mineral balance, and trigger muscle twitching or cramps. I started tracking my symptoms. And sure enough, on the days I had MSG-laden meals, my legs acted up more. That night, twitch. That shin ache. It wasn't random. It was chemistry. Then there were the emulsifiers and stabilizers, those hard-to-pronounce ingredients tucked away near the bottom of the label. They interfere with gut bacteria, mess with absorption of critical minerals like magnesium and potassium, and gradually dehydrate the muscles. Dehydrated muscles are brittle muscles. Brittle muscles cramp. They hesitate. They fail you when you least expect it. The research is still evolving, but some studies have shown that older adults who consume high amounts of ultra-processed foods experience significantly more physical discomfort, slower gait speed, and reduced balance. I didn't need more science. I had my own body's data. The quirky part, I remembered reading about Peter, a man in his 70s who lived in Arizona and swore off processed food for 60 days. He said the buzzing in his legs vanished. That phrase stuck with me because I'd felt the same buzzing, deep and inexplicable, like static in the wiring. So I followed his lead. Out went the snack bars. I replaced them with roasted almonds and fresh fruit. I stopped buying soup in a pouch and started making bone broth with garlic and turmeric. It took longer, but my legs stopped twitching. My calves felt warm again. Even the chill in my toes faded. The academic brawl over additives continues. Some experts claim they're harmless in moderation. Maybe, but what if your moderation is actually a daily, silent dose? What if your body has already tipped the scale? The real test is simple. Remove it, then listen. And that's what I did. I made room in my pantry, not just for better food, but for healing. I didn't need a detox, a cleanse, or a trendy meal plan. I just needed to let real food in and the fake stuff out. My legs thanked me. And in that gratitude, I realized something strange and beautiful. Sometimes the quietest thieves steal the most precious things, like confidence in your own steps. Now, I read the back of every label. Not like a shopper, like a detective. Part 5. My legs rewritten by a grocery list. There was no aha moment, no blinding light. Just one quiet morning when I got out of bed and realized nothing hurt. No cramp, no wobble, no dull ache in my calves or fire behind the knees. Just silence. Not the bad kind, like numbness or fatigue, but a clear, strong, hopeful kind. My legs, for the first time in years, felt like mine again. And it wasn't because of some medical breakthrough. It was because I had finally started feeding them what they needed and stopped feeding them what they didn't. I know it sounds too simple, but sometimes healing doesn't announce itself. It sneaks in with the kale, with the turmeric, with the stretch you do while brushing your teeth. I started thinking of my grocery list, not just as a chore, but as a prescription. A highly personalized script for circulation, nerve health, and muscular resilience. I leaned into anti-inflammatory foods, wild-caught salmon, avocados, blueberries. I stocked up on magnesium-rich options like pumpkin seeds and black beans. Then, I upgraded my morning routine. A banana with almond butter, herbal tea with lemon and ginger, and water, so much more water than I thought I needed. Turns out dehydration is a quiet enemy of joint mobility. That's when I came across Barbara's story. She was 76, had been taking high-dose calcium supplements for years, and started experiencing stiffness and painful leg cramps. A blood test revealed dangerously elevated calcium levels. Her own healthy habit had calcified her soft tissues. When she switched to food-based sources, spinach tofu sardines, her symptoms melted away. She said something I'll never forget. I stopped treating my legs like furniture and started treating them like friends. It hit me. My legs weren't just for walking. They were how I hugged my grandson, danced at my niece's wedding, stepped out into the sun after a rainstorm. They carried memory, joy, dignity, so I began to honor them. Daily walks, slow at first, then steadier. Gentle stretching before bed. Foam rolling while watching TV. Nothing complicated, just deliberate kindness. And the wildest thing happened. I became more confident. Not just in my balance, but in my choices. I stopped second-guessing every pain. I stopped Googling symptoms at midnight. I listened to my legs. They were wiser than I realized. Here's the strange academic hill. I'll die on mobility is not a luxury. It's a right, but it's also a responsibility. We earn it, protect it, lose it. And if we're lucky, reclaim it, one mindful meal and one walk at a time. Now, I see people loading their carts with convenience, rushing through aisles, missing the point. I want to say slow down. Your body is voting on everything you eat. Mine voted yes to carrots, spinach, beets, sweet potatoes, to walnuts and lemon water and sun on my shoulders, and no to MSG solanine, processed fillers, false promises, and shiny packaging. Because your grocery list isn't just food, it's freedom. And every leg deserves that. When the noise fades and the day slows, what's left is often the quiet hum of the body, sometimes strong, sometimes weary, always honest. And in those quiet moments, we get to choose how to treat it. So, let this be your permission slip to slow down, to step away from the processed, the hurried, the too convenient, to lean into real food, real care, and real trust in your legs, the ones that have carried you through decades. There's no perfect walk, only the one that's yours. So whether you're strolling through your garden, pacing a grocery aisle, or just standing at the kitchen sink, do it with pride, with softness, with reverence. You are still writing your story, and your legs, when fed and heard and loved, will carry you through every chapter left to come. Sweet dreams. Stay standing strong.